Cancer, heart disease, diabetes. These are considered some of the most serious issues facing our planet today, and justifiably so. According to the International Agency on Cancer Research, over 8 million people are claimed each year due to cancer. The World Health Organization reports that heart disease, the leading cause of death worldwide annually, touches 17.3 million people each year. The WHO also reports that an estimated 422 million people worldwide, including myself, live with diabetes. Do you know what affliction affects an estimated 1 billion people across the globe, approximately a seventh of the world's entitled population? Illiteracy. That is not to undermine the importance of funding and research for these other afflictions. On the contrary, it's to highlight the seriousness and importance of illiteracy, and that if it was a health issue, would be deemed an epidemic. But unlike these other issues that currently do not have cures, illiteracy does. Illiteracy is not a social or societal or cultural defect. It's the lack of ability to read. It's a solvable problem. But what is illiteracy? How is it defined? There are many forms of literacy: computer literacy, health literacy, financial literacy, and others. For the sake of today's conversation, we're going to talk about what a bulk of the population thinks of when they hear the word illiteracy: the basic inability to understand or produce written information. Those of us that make our ways through life off of sight words, images, just being able to sign our name, those folks are functionally illiterate. And as vaccines help to eliminate and stop the spread of disease, literacy can help us stop the spread of hunger, poverty, and crime. It is the tool necessary to break those harsh social cycles. The data is telling and troublesome. Students who exit fourth grade without being able to read proficiency have a 78% chance of not ever catching up. 90% of welfare recipients are either high school dropouts or illiterate. 85% of individuals that interface with the juvenile court system are either functionally illiterate or don't read with proficiency. No one factor can so drastically shape a person's chance of success, earning potential, health, and well-being, while helping to break the cycle that leads to daily poverty and struggle, like literacy. There are countless examples of how literacy has impacted a life or changed a community, but I'm going to share one of the ones that I'm at least the most familiar with, my own. But first, a quick survey. And for some, the questions can feel personal, so if you choose not to participate, there's no judgment here. But how many of us, when we were growing up, were on some kind of government assistance, whether that was food stamps or Section 8 housing? How many of us came from a home of either single parent or divorce? How many of us, when we were in grade school, were on free or reduced lunch? The data tells us that about 82% of students that are eligible for free and reduced lunch don't read at proficiency at grade level. 3 out of 4 food stamp recipients perform at the lowest literacy levels. I had all of these factors in my childhood. In fact, I'm the least likely person to be standing before you today as an authority on literacy and education initiatives, seeing as how I barely graduated high school. And you may be like, whoa, T, wait a minute, I just heard your intro. You were the Texas Librarian of the Year. You have a master's degree. You frequently speak on children's literacy and literature. You're articulate and well-dressed and handsome. See how many we'll get in there. My journey begins not far from where you sit today, the booming metropolis of Lubbock, Texas. That is neither handsome nor well-dressed. Were we all that bad in the 90s, or were I just so off base? And what is with the suspenders and the belt? Where were my pants going that I was so concerned that I needed both? That's on a fade, thankfully. My mother, she grew up in a small farming community southwest of Lubbock called Meadow. She had a very stable upbringing. My grandfather ran the cotton gin there. She had stability, 3 square meals a day, a roof over her head. She graduated high school, but didn't finish college, ended up marrying my father and having me. I think trouble was always brewing under the surface, and when I was 7, my parents divorced and my father left. I didn't see or hear from my father from 1986 until his death in 2007. My mother, God rest her soul, she passed in 2014. She did the best she could, but with no higher education, it was difficult to be the breadwinner. So she was gone a lot, working, trying to keep a roof over our head and food on the table. But with no siblings, I was home alone a lot, and that's where my struggles began. My grades began to suffer. I was passable, barely more. I acted out, was the class clown, which after years of counseling, I know was just my way of trying to get attention. I spent a lot of time running with the wrong kind of crowd, doing things young men ought not do. Got a lot of detention in study hall. But for me, staying after school for detention and study hall was better than going home to an empty house. And detention and study hall happened to be in the school library. Now, I was an adequate reader, but it doesn't help your street cred to be seen carrying the newest Babysitter's Club or Goosebumps book. But the library was a safe, comfortable environment, and that's where my transformation began. I think we can all identify at least one teacher or educator that had a great impact on our lives. For me, one of those was the librarian at Bowie Elementary School in Lubbock, Texas, Miss Ray. Now, while all of the other teachers were sending me to the office or putting me in a corner, not that I blame them because I was a pill, Miss Ray engaged me in a meaningful way. She told me about this award for books where the children of Texas got to vote on the winner. It was called the Texas Bluebonnet Award, and all you had to do to be eligible was read 5 of this list of 20 books, and that was it. For me, the idea that I could help decide what the best children's book in Texas was just by reading was magical. Just 5. Of course, I read all 20. I'm sitting in tutorials anyway, and while I'm sure Miss Ray would have preferred me to work on my schoolwork and improve my grades, I was transfixed by the idea of belonging to something, being a part of something. See, when I was reading, it didn't matter that I was on food stamps or that my father had abandoned me or that all my friends knew I was on free lunch at school. It changed me. It helped me to believe that my life had all the opportunity that I was willing to take advantage of. Now, I never did become a good student, and I did barely graduate high school, but because of Miss Ray, I had the foundational skill of reading that serves as a key to unlock upward mobility for life. I don't know where Miss Ray is now. I don't know where she is or what she's doing, and I've never been able to appropriately thank her, but I hope that my life in literacy is suitable thanks. Traditional education is important, but reading is the foundation upon which all other essential skills are built. I am an example of the transformative power that literacy can have on your life and help to break the harsh social cycles we sometimes find ourselves in. 1/3 of all children born into poverty will stay there through adulthood, but because of Miss Ray and many others along the way that took an interest, I'm not a part of that statistic. All of this is why schools and libraries should be cathedrals, beacons of light on the highest hill, proclaiming to all that here is where you change your life. Here is where meaningful, impactful progress is made. Librarians and teachers should be lauded for the work they're doing, educating our children and trying to make the world a better place through education. The investment in the intellectual development of our children is not a nice to have, it's a must have. The ability to read is a fundamental human right. It's like access to clean drinking water or health care. Its impact is every day. 180 million children worldwide will never darken the door of a school, but if they can read, they stand a chance to make their lives better, a chance to make their family lives better, a chance to impact their communities or villages or cities. And when we're talking about impact, the greatest impact is a child's access to books. Children that have books at home is a greater indicator of future success than their parents' education level. Middle-class income households, a child-to-book ratio is about 1-13. In low-income areas, that changes, and the age-appropriate book is 1 for every 300 children. So my challenge for all of us today is this. We need to get books into the hands of kids that will make a difference, will have an impact. The next time you're invited to a birthday party, instead of taking a toy that's going to break in a week, take a book. Stick a book in the stocking. Support your local literacy initiatives. Support your local public library. I envision a world where children have access at home to the same number of books that it's at least their age. If every 8-year-old had access to at least 8 books at home, and every 13-year-old had 13 and 17 had 17, can you imagine the impact that that would have on that generation and thereby future generations? The great Laura Bush. Oh my, that is a handsome, my lovely wife on the left, and then the legend. And Mrs. Bush is there as well. The great Mrs. Bush, who is a librarian by profession and a personal hero of mine, once said that children who read learn 2 things. First, that reading is worthwhile. But second, that they are worthwhile. Literacy is important. Literacy matters. Literacy can make a difference. Whatever the question, literacy is the answer. Thank you.